We continue working on the header. If you are doing the lessons on different days, don't forget, before starting, you need to open Docker and run the container to get the site working. In this lesson, we will be writing styles in CSS. I will give you a recommendation. When we have practical lessons, especially on CSS, try not to use copy-paste and write the same code that I write, but try to use your own approaches. That is, change the code a little and write it differently. In this way, you will better master the material because you will be thinking during the process, not just repeating after the video. In our project, there is a lot of SVG graphics, including icons and the logo. We will load a lot of graphics from the admin panel, but in WordPress, SVG graphics are prohibited. For security reasons, we need to enable it. We can enable it using a plugin, but remember, for plugins, we need to upload the plugin here in the plugins directory, or we can disable it using a hook. We have special additional plugins of our own, like Core Game Store, which we registered, or Must Use plugin. I'll go to Must Use plugin and insert a hook here that will allow the site to use SVG, that is load SVG. Images. Also, we forget that in the previous lesson we did not create reset CSS. We will also now address such aspects as function and hook. For SVG or reset CSS, they should also be present in your framework. That is, throughout this course, you will see which functions are frequently used and which are rarely used, and those that are frequently used, I suggest you save separately in this branch in the repository, where you will have only the framework as a template for future websites. My evolution and development is as follows. At first, I searched the internet for some solutions, tried writing them myself, combined them, and it worked. Like a ready-made solution. Then I would go into my projects on GitHub and copy pieces of code, inserting them into new projects. Today, to speed things up, I don't even open my old projects and use copy-paste. I go straight to ChatGPT. And I ask it to generate the piece of code I need. So for SVG, let's try using Copilot. I will open the chat for Copilot, which is the same as ChatGPT, and ask it to generate a hook function for me so that SVG graphics can be uploaded in WordPress. In real practice, I open the site itself in ChatGPT and make my request there. But to save time, you can also use this section. And as you can see, it generated a hook function for us that we can use. I take this, insert it into our code, and close the window. And you can see how quickly I solve this function. Even faster than installing a separate plugin. Of course, a separate plugin offers a more comprehensive solution. This is a minimally trivial solution. We can, of course, spend more time and ask the chat to perform additional work on our code. You can install an additional component in PHP that will check these SVG files. Using Composer, you can install SVG Sanitize and thereby use the function to check if there is any malicious code inside the SVG files. But we will not do that. If you need more comprehensive protection, then simply insert a special plugin for using SVG into the directory with our plugins and activate it in the admin panel. For this course, I need to enable support for SVG so that I can upload logo icons from the admin panel. So I am enabling it, thus nothing more. Next, let's go to our CSS code and copy-paste. I am placing here a reset, which I usually use for layout in all projects. It's also very simple. You can either take your own from some projects or use this one. I will insert the source code and you will have the source code of this project. Or you can generate a new CSS reset using ChatGPT and Copilot. Wonderful. Next, let's go to Figma and export the graphics for the header. So I select the logo and choose the SVG format. We export it to any directory on your computer, not to our working directory with the source code. Since this is an image for the admin panel, we will load it from the admin panel, not use it in the code. Next, we go to the header and upload it. Uploaded the logo, inserted it, saved. The only thing, it's very small for me because WordPress applied its size filters to the logo. Our logo should have a width of approximately 196 pixels. Let's go ahead and set the position right here, which is exactly 196 pixels. This precise measurement ensures that everything aligns perfectly as intended. And while we're at it, let's also export these three icons from here. I've exported all the icons. Now let's take a look and sort out the colors. We select our header, go to DVD, Lapper mode, and check the colors. So we have a benefit, the variable background default, and this white color. Let's click on this variable. Let's look at a different color for darker, but we don't need RGB. We need hex format. And here we can take this value. I suggest copying the names for the variables and moving to our CSS, where we will now create a block with the variables we will use. So for the light theme, we will initialize the variables in this way. Let's take the value for the variable, for the color itself. And for the dark version, we will have a separate class called dark mode. And let's add a prefix for reliability, because there might be a conflict with some future plugin that also uses the phrase dark mode. So it's better to use a prefix in such cases, which we add at the end. And this same variable we will overwrite with a different value. And here we will take the value from the dark version. Great. While we're here, we'll do the same with the icons. Only here I don't see. They move on action main. And in the dark version, yes, also action main. Here we will switch to RGB, since we need the transparency parameter. Let's switch first to the light version, and for the dark, we'll change the value. So it's also used for the button. This value is new, a variable. And we'll overwrite it for the dark theme. Wait, here I had the value for the dark, so for the light, I just click on this code and it doesn't copy it to the clipboard, so I attentively change it for the light. Like this. And what about the text? For the text we have the primary text variable being used. We won't write the code in our header, in this main file. In this main file, it's just the initialization of variables. And we'll switch immediately to the light version. We can leave it in RGB or in hex, because when our transparency is 1, it means transparency is not used, and I find it more comfortable to understand colors when they are specified in hex. I use RGB only when transparency is used, and I will rewrite it for the dark version. And for the dark version, pure white color. So, there are no other variables in our header. This will be enough for now. And in this manner, for this project, as we work with some changes, we will transfer them to this configuration file. Let's call it that. So the principle for the dark version is very simple. Actually, we will have a button in the header, and when this button is pressed, this class will be added to the body tag. And since the body will have this class, all the variables that we set here will simply be overwritten. With these values, and dark colors will be used instead of light ones. We will write the code directly for the block in the block itself, so we open it in the plugin and navigate to the directory, the header block. And here style, SCSS, is the file where we should write. So the style that we write here, let me remind you, will be interpreted both on the front end and in Gutenberg. Next, this is the default class generated by WordPress. Here is the old slug, blocks, games, but we have a new slug now, the header or block. Therefore, I will copy the header block and paste here further into the WordPress project itself. There are also variables with colors E, if you remember, when we generated, so we can replace them with our brand colors there. But we will do that later. For now, we are working with the header. So here is our main class. And we also changed the block, so for reliability, we will rearrange the entire class like this. And every block we develop, Desi, we will always write inside this main container to avoid conflict with other blocks. Let's write the first lines of code. So let's take the header. It has a height of 100 pixels. Let's recall the HTML structure. So inside we have some, and in Fedor we don't use any wrapper. At this stage, the wrapper will later be just 32 pixels. There are paddings on the left and right, and also 8 pixels on top. I'm not sure if they are important to us. Most likely it's just a mistake in the layout, in the design. I don't set them here. In a header, set paddings on the edges. Further, flex is not needed on the container here, they are needed here. Please note, the structure of our header is as follows. In the winner header, we have a site logo, navigation, and a right section. According to the design, the logo and navigation should go to the left, and the right section logically goes to the right section. It would be easier for us if there was a common container here, that is, one div. We can fix this in the code itself, add this div, or we can come up with some kind of helicopter in CSS and position them using CSS, specifically in the style that is set in the layout. And by the way, it occurred to me, a third idea came to mind which doesn't involve a CSS helicopter or the source code, but rather going into the admin panel, into the header. Let's open the tree of all blocks, and you see this header, this list, is nothing more than an inner block component. But we can here use another block called group. This likes a group. Here it is, and I'll leave it in the first position and the site logo. I drag it inside the group. Let's put it inside like this, and the navigation inside as well. Now I save it. And let's check further. Looking at the source code now. So, inner header. We now have one section that I wanted to insert, and consequently, the right section. The only thing is, this group has some default styles. We can disable them here, like this, and save. And it already looks the way we need it to. None of our styles are being applied because we haven't started the compiler for the block. Let's start it. Go to the terminal. We need to go into the NS folder. And blocks game store mpn ras. Now the changes we write are being compiled, and even these styles with display flex should be interpreted on the site. Refresh the page. Yes, now they are being interpreted. And let's continue by applying flex to this group as well. WordPress now inserts its own styles here. This is because I didn't create my own block, but I'm using WordPress block. Therefore, for accuracy, I will have to reset some styles, such as this top margin as well. Keep this in mind, or create your own separate block for links. We need a background color. We need to set colors for the text. In principle, we need a style for the body. So we don't have to rewrite the color for each block. Therefore, we will switch to Game Store for the body. This is a global style. Although we actually use a different color for the body, secondary, alright, we will come back to this body later. Here. We will set the color here. This is a darker color, a different color. So, once we are in navigation, let's not be in navigation, but with the parents. This let's add means the urbanist uses this font everywhere. So we'll put it on the body. He set normal everywhere for us. We'll send it to the body. Excellent. Further, the links in our block should not have underlining. Next, I don't really like the alignment. When we have more items in the menu, we'll return to this point. Maybe there is no shift here, a trick of the eye. Maybe there is some WordPress styles, but we're not interested in that for now. Next, we need our icons for the icons. I can insert them through C. I can insert them as tags. Since they also have a variable with color, I will insert them as tags because in SVG, tags I can change this variable. Therefore, I will have to edit the source code. Let's go here. We are interested in searching. I will take the search icon. I will drag into the editor. So this is an SVG code. I take this SVG and I insert it here. Now, we look for this fill value, which fills and change it to the value of our variable. By the way, I can copy them from here without dragging. This variable updating on the site will not show anything right now. You see, an empty container because I changed the original code. But WordPress shows the old one until I do a recovery for this block. But it should be present both in the front part and in the admin part. Therefore, in the admin part, we must also change it. That is the HTML body must match. In both versions, after this, you need to update the page. Will go over a recovery block. We click Restore. Update. And only now does the icon load. And as you can see, the color is also applied to it. We will do the same with the other icons now. It's important to choose not this part and the inner one. The icon, but specifically with the frame, that is this one, along with the frame created in such a way that you don't want to not select it. They selected it without the frame. No, if it still selects a piece, it's not a big deal. I will take advantage of this by dragging the same format. You see the frame is 36 by 36 when we have it. Such a frame allows us not to write extra code, so I will choose the next M switch contest. I'm dragging it, you see it has this frame, meaning when I saved it, I selected it along with the frame. I take this code and insert it into the mod switcher. This approach is not very visually appealing because you see how the code we add grows, meaning its volume increases, but we can easily change it. Here we copy this code to know that we have 7 of them, so we can, like this, using replace, we can substitute them with our variable. Forgot the action already. Action main, but we'll use copy paste. Let's insert this thing. For the admin panel, further for the cart, we can use the same approach. We can convert this code from SVD to with, but the whole session will have to call it twice, and it's twice as long because the color will need to be replaced, specifically in the styles. Therefore, this approach is the shortest. So the cart, we take the code. And that's it. Let's update the cart. In the admin panel, let's not forget to do this. Once again, we'll restore the block. In the admin panel, because the changes won't be displayed yet. Then we'll write styles for our icons. So, default of RFD, we will have right section. Then we'll see what their gap is. So, the gap for this section, 12 pixels. Next, we'll write styles for the button. Let's see if this type of button is used anywhere else. As far as I remember, no. Therefore, there's no need to create a separate component in the template. And if it will be used, we'll simply move it from the header to the global components. There we have a link. Okay, the link already looks like what we need. Let's make sure of its size. Height is 50, while we set it to 40. Let's go into box sizing, and this will fix our height, making it 40 pixels. Yes, wonderful. Now it looks like what we have in the layout. On hover, here we have links and the cursor changes. Here we have simple containers, the cursor does not change. We will fix this now. All right, hover effects can be added. I don't think it's that important in a WordPress course. This is more of a CSS territory, so I'll leave it in this minimalist style. Maybe later. I'll add some opacity. But it's not that important, so I'm not focusing on it. Now we need to add more links to the header. Let's also update the page in the admin panel. In the style, they are loading. Next, our SVG icons are not loading because they have variables set. I'll tell you why they are not loading. They are loading, but we don't see them because the variable is loaded in this way. But in the admin panel, these variables do not exist. We loaded the style file only for the front part and doesn't see the values here. It sees the variables for these colors because we specified them with a sort of backup. Take note, this is called a backup. If there is no value, then you use this value. We didn't use it for icons. To make them work in the admin panel, we basically need to set a backup here. Let's set it so for main. This is the backup. Let's go back here. Use Control. We'll search for main and replace it with this. Do the same thing. And for edit, replace, then in the admin panel once more. Redo this header, attempt, block recovery, server. I don't see them, probably need to do a refresh. Let's check if it really inserts. Since JB is inserting, let's check here. Well, it's often a cache issue. No, it's here. I'm afraid the candles are poorly interpreted in you. So, a very strange situation. We have RGBA with opacity, but we also set opacity through the attribute. When loading the variable apo itself on the front end, it works wonderfully in the admin panel, but for some reason it doesn't want to work. It probably doesn't even reach the backup step. It tries to get this variable, but it doesn't have it. Let's try adding these variables through the editor, since the editor is a file that will be loaded specifically in the admin panel on Gutenberg. We'll take a block with variables. We are just testing this now. Let's add them here and see now if the presence of variables will help. Yes, now as variables exist in the admin panel and it interprets them. But it's very strange why it's as if this backup specifically for RGB didn't work. So let's now think about how to handle the variables. In principle, we are only interested here in one variable for icons, so we leave it and don't worry. There's no need to delve deeply here. At the same time, we use the file to which data will only be loaded in the admin panel. Let's make sure once again that everything works. Yes, everything is perfect. In the admin panel, it loads on the front end. The next is to add our menu items to the navigation itself. We choose the navigation, meaning specifically choosing the navigation block. According to the layout we have, so I won't be able to insert these pages right now because no, there are both static and dynamic pages. Let me just rename and insert a few test ones so it looks nicer according to the design. I'll just insert the links. Like this, we'll end this lesson and continue in the next lesson. We will create a switch for dark mode and work on the styles for navigation and drop down. See you in the next lesson.